The quiet evening at the corner cafe shattered in an instant. Maria Martinez stood frozen, her hands trembling as her manager's words echoed through the half-empty diner. 10 years of dedication, countless double shifts, and endless cups of coffee poured with care. All ended with 2 simple sentences: "You're fired. Clear out your locker immediately." The other waitresses watched in stunned silence as tears welled up in Maria's eyes, her weathered apron still spotted with coffee stains from her morning shift. In the corner booth, a man with long dark hair and gentle eyes observed the scene, his coffee untouched. Maria's mind raced to her sick mother at home, to the stack of unpaid medical bills on their kitchen table, to the empty refrigerator she had promised to fill after payday. Her fingers fumbled with her apron strings as she fought back sobs. The evening sun cast long shadows through the diner's windows, illuminating the scene like a spotlight on a stage. What Maria didn't know was that this moment, this crushing, heartbreaking moment, would become the unexpected turning point of her life. As she gathered her few belongings, the mysterious man in the corner reached for something in his jacket pocket, an envelope that would transform everything. Maria's day had started like any other, in the small 2-bedroom apartment she shared with her mother. The morning sunlight filtered through thin curtains as she prepared her mother's medications, carefully arranging the colored pills in the weekly organizer. Elena Martinez lay in her bed, her once strong frame now fragile from months of aggressive cancer treatments. "Mama, time for your medicine," Maria whispered, though she knew her mother was already awake. The pain often kept her from sleeping through the night. The apartment walls told their story through faded photographs. Maria's graduation from high school, her father's funeral 5 years ago, and countless moments at the corner cafe where she had worked since she was 18. The morning routine had become a delicate dance, checking her mother's temperature, preparing bland oatmeal that she hoped her mother could keep down, and rushing to make it to her morning shift on time. 10 years at the cafe had shaped Maria's life. She knew every crack in the laminate countertops, every regular customer's order by heart. Old Joe, who came in at 6 a.m. sharp for his black coffee and wheat toast. Sarah, the night nurse who stopped by after her hospital shifts, always ordering a slice of apple pie. The cafe wasn't just her workplace, it had become her second home, its familiar rhythms as much a part of her as her own heartbeat. The bills piled up on their kitchen table told another story. Medical expenses, insurance denials, prescription costs. Each envelope represented another mountain to climb. Maria had been picking up extra shifts whenever possible, her feet aching from the long hours, but she never complained. The cafe's owner, Mr. Thompson, had always been understanding, working around her schedule when she needed to take her mother to chemotherapy appointments. But things had changed 3 months ago when Mr. Thompson sold the cafe to a corporate restaurant group. The new management brought new rules, efficiency metrics, and cold spreadsheets that reduced every interaction to numbers. Maria noticed the changes immediately. The removal of the old jukebox that had played countless country songs, the replacement of Elena's homemade pie recipe with mass-produced desserts, the constant pressure to turn tables faster. That morning, Maria had pulled her graying waitress uniform from the dryer, noticing how the fabric had thinned from countless washes. She smoothed the name tag that read Maria, serving since 2014, and pinned it carefully to her chest. The morning news played quietly on their small TV as she gathered her things. Another story about economic hardships and business closures across the city. The bus ride to work had been her quiet time, a moment to gather her strength for the day ahead. She watched the city wake up through foggy windows, mentally calculating how many tips she would need to make the minimum payment on her mother's latest hospital bill. The cafe's familiar neon sign blinked in the distance as the bus approached her stop, the letters spelling out, "The Corner Cafe, Home Cooking," though much of the home-style comfort had disappeared with the new ownership. Walking through the cafe's door, Maria had felt an unusual tension in the air. The new manager, Bradley, a young man fresh from business school who had never waited tables in his life, stood by the register reviewing papers. The morning regulars were already in their usual spots, but something felt different. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her shoulders as she tied her apron strings and prepared for another day of service. Little did Maria know that this ordinary morning would become the last time she would put on that familiar uniform, the last time she would greet her morning regulars with practiced ease. The universe had other plans, and sometimes the hardest endings make way for the most unexpected beginnings. As she began her shift, a mysterious customer would walk through those doors, carrying with him the power to change everything, though neither of them knew it yet. The morning rush at the corner cafe moved in its familiar rhythm. Maria filled coffee cups with practiced precision, her mind half-focused on her mother's upcoming doctor's appointment. The new manager Bradley hovered near the register, his tablet computer displaying spreadsheets of performance metrics that seemed to matter more than customer satisfaction these days. Through the steam of fresh coffee and the clinking of plates, Maria noticed Bradley watching her every move. His presence felt different today, more intense than usual. She tried to shake off the feeling, focusing instead on Mrs. Henderson's order of scrambled eggs and whole wheat toast, making sure to remember the extra butter on the side. The bell above the door chimed at exactly 10:43 a.m. Maria glanced up, her hands full with a pot of fresh coffee. A man walked in, tall and unassuming, wearing a simple black jacket and carrying a worn backpack. He chose a corner booth, the one partially hidden by the artificial plant the corporate office had insisted on installing. Something about him caught Maria's attention, perhaps the gentle way he moved, or how his eyes seemed to take in everything without judgment. As the morning crowd thinned, Bradley called Maria into the small office behind the kitchen. The room still held photographs from Mr. Thompson's days, snapshots of holiday parties and employee celebrations that felt like memories from another lifetime. Bradley sat behind the desk, his expression unreadable as he gestured for Maria to take a seat. The next few minutes blurred together. Words like performance metrics and efficiency standards floated through the air, but all Maria could think about was her mother at home, waiting for her to bring back a prescription refill. Bradley's voice droned on about corporate expectations and adaptability to change. Then came the words that shattered her world: immediate termination, final paycheck, clear out personal belongings. Maria sat motionless, her mind refusing to process what was happening. 10 years of service ended in a 5-minute conversation. She thought about the regular customers who relied on her remembering their orders, about the young college students she had helped with extra tips when they were short on cash, about the countless holidays she had worked so others could spend time with their families. In the dining room, the mysterious customer in the corner booth had paused with his coffee cup halfway to his lips, his attention drawn to the office door where Maria's world was falling apart. He watched as she emerged, tears streaming down her face despite her attempts to maintain composure. The other waitresses stood frozen, coffee pots and order pads suspended in mid-motion. Maria's hands trembled as she untied her apron for the last time. The name tag caught on the fabric, and as she unpinned it, a small tear appeared in the uniform she had worn with pride for so long. She moved toward the employee lockers, passing the wall where Employee of the Month photos once hung, now replaced by corporate motivational posters. The mysterious customer set down his coffee cup, his eyes following Maria's movements with a mixture of concern and something deeper, understanding, perhaps, or recognition of a familiar pain. He reached into his backpack, removing an envelope with careful deliberation. Bradley's voice cut through the heavy silence. "Please exit through the back door." The words felt like a final twist of the knife. Maria gathered her few belongings, a spare pair of shoes, a small photo of her mother she kept in her locker, and the tip money she had earned that morning. The same back door she had used thousands of times now felt like a stranger's exit. As Maria pushed open the heavy metal door, the afternoon sun blinded her momentarily. She stood in the alley behind the cafe, clutching her small bag of belongings, tears flowing freely now. The weight of reality crashed down. No job, no insurance, no way to pay for her mother's treatments. The brick wall behind her felt cool against her back as she slid down to sit on the concrete, her legs no longer able to support her. The back door opened again. Maria quickly wiped her eyes, expecting Bradley with some final humiliation. Instead, the mysterious customer from the corner booth stepped into the alley. His presence was gentle, non-threatening. He held the envelope in his hands, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the distant traffic and the hum of the cafe's ventilation system. The mysterious man took a step forward, his movement careful as if approaching a wounded bird. Maria quickly tried to compose herself, embarrassment mixing with the pain of her situation. The envelope in his hands was simple white paper, unremarkable except for the weight it seemed to carry in this moment. "Sometimes the worst moments lead us to where we need to be," he said softly, his voice carrying a warmth that made Maria look up. Through her tears, she noticed his kind eyes, the gentle lines around them suggesting someone who had seen both joy and sorrow in equal measure. He extended the envelope toward her, and Maria found herself accepting it without questioning why. The paper felt thick between her fingers, substantial in a way that made her heart beat faster. The man stepped back, giving her space as she carefully opened the sealed flap. Inside, she found two things: a handwritten note and a check that made her breath catch in her throat. The note read, "Your dedication hasn't gone unnoticed. Every morning, You served coffee with genuine care for others, even while carrying your own burdens. Your mother needs you, and now it's time someone helped you too. This gift comes with no strings attached. Use it to take care of your mother and yourself. Sometimes the universe has a way of redirecting us exactly where we need to go. With respect and admiration. Maria's hands trembled as she read the signature at the bottom. Her mind refused to process it at first, but there it was, Keanu Reeves, written in clear, steady handwriting. She looked up at the man standing before her, really seeing him for the first time. The actor she had watched in countless movies, whose posters had adorned her younger brother's walls years ago, had been sitting in her section all morning. The check in her hands bore numbers that made her dizzy. Enough to cover her mother's treatments for months. Enough to provide breathing room she hadn't had in years. Tears fell onto the paper, and she quickly wiped them away, afraid they might somehow make this miracle disappear. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Why would you? How did you know?" Keanu's smile was gentle, tinged with something that spoke of personal understanding. "I watched you all morning. The way you treated every customer with kindness, even while carrying your own worries. The photo of your mother you kept checking in your apron pocket. Sometimes we all need someone to notice our silent struggles." Maria clutched the envelope to her chest, overwhelmed by the magnitude of this moment. The alley behind the corner cafe, where she had just experienced the lowest point of her professional life, had transformed into a place of miracle and hope. The afternoon sun caught the edges of the envelope, creating a soft glow that felt almost symbolic. "I can't accept this," she started to say, but Keanu shook his head. "You can and you will," he said firmly but kindly. "Take care of your mother. Then, when you're ready, think about what you really want to do with your life. Sometimes losing one path shows us the one we were meant to take all along." Before Maria could respond, he turned and walked away, his figure disappearing around the corner of the building. She sat there for several more minutes, reading and rereading the note, touching the check to confirm its reality. The sounds of the cafe continued behind her, dishes clinking, voices murmuring, life going on as if the world hadn't just shifted on its axis. Finally, Maria stood up, her legs steadier now. The weight of the envelope in her hands felt like both an anchor and wings, grounding her in this moment while promising flight toward something new. She pulled out her phone, her mother's number already dialing before she realized she had pressed the buttons. "Mama," she said when her mother answered, her voice thick with emotion, "something amazing just happened. Something that changes everything." The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity and emotion. Maria's first stop after that life-changing afternoon was her mother's doctor's office. With trembling hands, she paid the outstanding balance that had been keeping her awake at nights. The receptionist's surprised smile when she cleared their account brought fresh tears to her eyes. Elena Martinez noticed the change in her daughter immediately. The constant worry lines that had aged Maria beyond her years began to soften. For the first time in months, Maria slept through the night, no longer waking to check her phone for emergency calls from the hospital. The envelope from Keanu sat in their small safe, but its contents had already begun transforming their lives. Maria spent hours researching nursing programs at the local community college. She had abandoned this dream years ago when her father passed away, choosing instead to support her family through waitressing. Now, sitting at their kitchen table with admission papers spread before her, that old passion reignited. Her mother watched from her chair by the window, color returning to her cheeks as her treatments continued without the stress of financial burden. The enrollment process moved quickly. Maria's high school transcripts still showed the excellent grades she had maintained while working part-time at the cafe. The admissions counselor, a kind woman named Patricia, helped her navigate the paperwork and class selections. "Your life experience will make you an exceptional nurse," Patricia said, noting Maria's decade of customer service. "You already understand the importance of compassion and patience." Summer turned to fall, and Maria found herself in nursing school orientation. The classroom felt foreign at first, so different from the familiar rhythm of the cafe. Her classmates were mostly younger, fresh from high school, but Maria's determination drove her forward. During breaks between classes, she would visit her mother, whose strength was gradually returning as the treatments continued without interruption. The first semester challenged her in ways she hadn't expected. Anatomy and physiology required late-night study sessions, and clinical rotations reminded her of her waitressing days, always on her feet, always putting others first. But this time, every step had purpose, every learned skill brought her closer to her true calling. December brought their first real Christmas celebration in years. Elena's doctors reported promising progress, and Maria had maintained a 4.0 GPA in her nursing courses. They set up a small tree in their apartment, and Maria hung the note from Keanu among the branches, a reminder of the miracle that had changed their path. As winter melted into spring, Maria's transformation continued. Her former co-workers from the cafe visited occasionally, amazed at the confidence that now radiated from their friend. The cafe itself had changed too. Bradley had been replaced, and the corporate owners had sold to a local family. Sometimes Maria drove past it on her way to clinical rotations, remembering the day that had felt like an ending but had actually been a beginning. Elena's recovery progressed steadily. By March, she was strong enough to attend Maria's first nursing award ceremony, where her daughter received recognition for outstanding academic achievement. Sitting in the audience, Elena remembered the countless mornings she had watched Maria leave for the cafe, carrying the weight of their struggles on her shoulders. Now, in her crisp white student nurse uniform, Maria stood tall, her future stretching bright before her. During her second semester, Maria began specializing in oncology nursing. Her experiences with her mother had shown her the importance of compassionate care for cancer patients and their families. Her instructors noted her natural ability to connect with patients, how she remembered their stories and preferences just as she had once remembered her regular customers' coffee orders. 1 year after that fateful day in the alley, Maria stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting her new ID badge for her part-time position as a student nurse at the local hospital. The face that looked back at her showed the same kindness but carried a new purpose. Her mother's voice called from the kitchen, strong enough now to prepare breakfast for them both, a simple act that would have seemed impossible 12 months ago. The hospital corridors felt nothing like the cafe aisles, yet Maria moved through them with the same grace she had once shown carrying plates of eggs and coffee. Her patients responded to her gentle touch and understanding smile, never knowing that their nurse had once thought her dreams were out of reach. Each time she administered medication or checked vital signs, she silently thanked the mysterious actor whose kindness had set this transformation in motion. Elena's final treatment coincided with Maria's completion of her second semester. Mother and daughter sat together in the oncology ward, both crying happy tears as the doctor confirmed what they had hoped: the cancer was in remission. Maria held her mother's hand, remembering all the mornings she had arranged pills on their kitchen counter, all the nights she had prayed for this moment. As spring bloomed again, Maria's transformation reached beyond her professional life. She began volunteering at a support group for families dealing with cancer, sharing her story of hope and renewal. The weight of constant worry had lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a sense of purpose and possibility. She kept Keanu's note framed on her desk, a reminder that sometimes help comes in unexpected forms, and that kindness can change the course of a life. 1 year after receiving Keanu's letter, Maria walked through the doors of St. Mary's Hospital wearing navy blue scrubs and carrying a new sense of purpose. Her official nursing license, earned through countless hours of study and determination, hung proudly in her mother's living room. Elena, now cancer-free, had moved into a bright apartment near the hospital, where she tended to a small garden of herbs and flowers on her balcony. Maria's first day as a full-time oncology nurse brought her face-to-face with a young mother battling breast cancer. As she administered the woman's chemotherapy, Maria shared her own mother's story of recovery, watching hope spark in the patient's tired eyes. The same compassion that had once earned her generous tips at the cafe now brought comfort to patients during their darkest hours. The hospital staff quickly recognized Maria's unique ability to connect with patients and their families. Her background in service had taught her to anticipate needs before they were voiced, to remember small details that made patients feel seen and valued. When a frightened child needed distraction during treatment, Maria knew exactly how to make them smile, just as she had once known how to cheer up stressed customers with perfectly timed coffee refills. One quiet evening shift, Maria was organizing patient charts when a familiar face appeared at the nurse's station. Bradley, her former manager from the cafe, stood awkwardly clutching a visitor's pass. His mother had been admitted for cancer treatment, and the universe's sense of irony hadn't escaped him. Maria felt no bitterness as she helped him navigate the complicated world of hospital procedures and insurance forms. Sometimes life's greatest lessons came wrapped in unexpected packages. Elena's recovery continued to flourish. She began volunteering at the hospital's family support center, her own experience helping her guide others through their cancer journeys. Mother and daughter often shared lunch in the hospital cafeteria, their conversations no longer dominated by worry over bills and treatments. Instead, they planned for the future. Elena talked about teaching Spanish classes at the community center, while Maria considered pursuing advanced nursing certifications. The corner cafe still stood on its busy street corner, though Maria rarely thought about it now. One Sunday morning, she decided to stop in for coffee, curious to see how it had changed. The new owners had restored some of the old charm, and the artificial plant that had once hidden Keanu's booth had been replaced with real flowers. As she sipped her coffee, a young waitress approached her table, looking exhausted and worried. Maria recognized the same weight of responsibility she had once carried. Without hesitation, Maria wrote a note on a napkin, along with a generous tip that would have seemed impossible during her waitressing days. "Sometimes the hardest endings lead to the best beginnings," she wrote, echoing the spirit of kindness that had changed her own life. The waitress's tears of gratitude reminded Maria of herself in that alley, not knowing that rock bottom would become her foundation for something greater. Maria's nursing career flourished beyond her expectations. Her understanding of both medical procedures and human nature made her invaluable in the oncology ward. She initiated a program that provided emotional support to families of cancer patients, remembering how isolation had compounded her own struggles. The hospital administration took notice, and soon she was training new nurses, teaching them that compassion was as important as clinical skills. Elena's garden bloomed with each passing season, much like their renewed life. Mother and daughter hosted Sunday dinners for other families going through cancer treatment, their small apartment becoming a haven of hope and understanding. The framed note from Keanu hung in their living room, its message of kindness inspiring others facing similar challenges. 1 year turned into 2, and Maria's transformation continued to ripple outward. She never saw Keanu again, but his act of kindness lived on through her daily interactions with patients and their families. The universe had indeed redirected her exactly where she needed to be, turning what seemed like an ending into a beginning filled with purpose and possibility. On a crisp autumn morning 3 years after that life-changing day, Maria pulled into the parking lot of the corner cafe. The familiar neon sign flickered in the early light, but this time she wasn't here to work. She had received a call from the new owners, asking if she would speak at their community outreach program about career transitions and following dreams. The cafe had transformed under its new management. Local artwork hung on the walls, and the aroma of fresh-baked pastries filled the air. As Maria walked through the door, memories washed over her, both bitter and sweet. The corner booth where Keanu had sat remained, now marked with a small plaque celebrating random acts of kindness. The dining room was filled with service industry workers, many still in their uniforms from overnight shifts. Maria noticed a young waitress in the front row, dark circles under her eyes matching the coffee stains on her apron. As Maria shared her story, she watched hope bloom across tired faces. She spoke about her journey from waitress to nurse, about her mother's recovery, and about the stranger whose kindness had sparked it all. After her talk, the young waitress approached her, confiding about her own struggles with nursing school applications and family responsibilities. Maria reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, not as substantial as the one she had received years ago, but filled with the same spirit of kindness. Inside was enough to cover the waitress's nursing school application fees and first semester books. "Sometimes we need someone to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves," Maria told her, echoing the lesson she had learned in that back alley. The young woman's tears of gratitude mirrored her own from that transformative day. Later that evening, Maria and Elena hosted their weekly dinner for cancer patients and their families. As they shared meals and stories around their expanded dining table, Maria caught sight of Keanu's framed note on the wall. His act of kindness hadn't just changed 2 lives, it had created a ripple effect touching countless others. The universe did indeed have its own way of redirecting paths. What had felt like the end of everything that day in the alley had actually been the beginning of something far greater. Maria's journey from waitress to nurse hadn't just been about changing careers. It had been about discovering her true purpose and passing that gift of hope forward. As the evening sun cast long shadows through Elena's flourishing garden, Maria smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as our darkest moments. Her story continued to inspire others, proving that with a little kindness and lot of determination, any ending could become a beautiful beginning.